This program is brought to you by Suffolk University. Please visit us on the web at www.suffolk.edu.
Welcome again, everyone, to the Ford Hall Forum. Thanks for joining us for that great film. Again, this will go longer than 8:30, so please leave whenever you feel you need to. But I hope you'll stay with us. We are proud to be the nation's oldest continuously operating free public lecture series. And since we're short on time, I'll make the introduction quick. The Ford Hall Forum would like to thank the generous sponsors and members for making our free lectures possible. If you're not already a member, please stop by our information desk on your way out and get some information on that. This event is being recorded and will be available as a webcast on the WGBH Forum Network. When we get to the question and answer period, if you have a question, please step up to the microphone and ask it so that we can hear you, but also so that we can record you. In doing so, you're giving the Ford Hall Forum permission for us to record you. We present to you tonight the award-winning chef and owner of Rialto Restaurant, Ms. Jody Adams. The president of the Boston Public Market, Mr. Donald Wiest. And senior food editor for Yankee Magazine, Ms. Annie Copps. And as I turn the microphone over to our moderator, please help me welcome Ford Hall Forum's Food Inc. panel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming and for paying attention to something that is so important to all of us. We all have to eat. And, well, how many of you are shocked? I do want to see a raise of hands. How many were shocked by the film? And I think that this is sort of a little bit of preaching to the choir. I think that we sort of know a lot more than a lot of maybe our friends and neighbors about where our food is coming from. I think this is a pretty enlightened group. Without showing hands, I just want you guys to think or maybe ask yourself this question. How many of you had a fast food meal this week or this month? Or fed that to your children? Or worse, saw the commercial for Kentucky Fried Chicken where they're not even bothering to put bread on the outside of it. They're taking 2 pieces of fried chicken and putting God knows what in the middle of it. And that's, I mean, how do you even eat that? And it's very, very frightening. Well, it's all about money, folks, as the film quite clearly showed us. And so let's start voting with our forks. There are about 308 million people that live in America. 10% of that is what, 30 million? If 30 million people, 10%, started making some demands of government and the industry and our supermarkets, 30 million people are going to make a change. We see what's happening with Walmart. We see what's happening with Stonyfield Farms, Gary Hirschberg's fabulous story. We can make a change. So as scary and frightening and disgusting in many parts as that film was, we can make a change. So, I think we should be shocked, but I think we can also feel a little bit empowered by all of that. That was definitely propaganda. It was aimed at influencing us with an attitude, to a very specific case or position. But I don't mind that they were manipulating me. I don't. I'm glad to be educated. The message is an important one, and Tyson and Smithfield Farm and Purdue and Monsanto declined to be interviewed for the film. They had an opportunity to speak back, so I think that that's important to also think about. I mentioned just how big our population is, and that just if every single one of us in this room did one small thing, it does change. This film was definitely about food at the national level and to a large extent at the global level, but I'm going to try and bring this to our local level. I think that maybe we can all get our heads around it a little bit more easily, which is why Jody and Don are here. And by the way, Jody and Don are on our team. And actually, if there's anybody who's not on our team, we would love to hear from you because I think it just makes the debate better. So to meet that end, I want to have Jody and Don each speak for a minute just about what the film meant to them and what their reactions are, and then we'll get into some pointed questions. And if you have a question, please maybe write it down because we don't have a ton of time. And I will cut you off. I will start playing orchestra music like on the Academy Awards and whisk you right off stage. So first, Jody, hi, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yes, Jody and I have known each other for almost 30 years, and we work together in kitchens, but also in the public health field as well, on the national level with various conferences and concerns. So here you go, Jody Adams.
Well, that's 30 years is
25 years.
25 years. 25 years, yes. And just anyway, but 25 years ago was a time when I first got into this business of working professionally in food. And it was very clear at that time that buying locally was what made sense. There were a lot of people who were talking. Frances Moore LaPay, for one. When I was in college, I remember going to hear her speak and talk about the health of the planet and the health and our personal health as well. It's a discussion that has been going on for a really long time. And what's shocking, I think, is to hear that in 50 years, how dramatically the industrial food system has changed, and yet we knew it. Some people knew it was actually coming. It's just that their voices couldn't be loud enough. And now we're at a crisis, and we have this fabulous, fun British guy coming over here and telling us we better wake up and get smart. Jamie Oliver is doing, what some Americans should have done a long time ago, in terms of food for kids, because that's really what it comes down to at this point. It's the children and how we feed our children. It's we're growing children that are unhealthy, and it has nothing to do with the choice that they can make. And I think that that's really what comes home to me loudly and clearly. And people have often asked me, as I do have children, how I feed my kids. What do I feed my kids? Is it, am I careful? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I can do that. It's a personal choice that I have made. But there's one thing that I was talking to my husband, who is very articulate on these subjects, about this movie and these issues. And we distilled it really to two words. One is authenticity, and the other is excess. We're trying to get back to a place of authenticity. Some of us never maybe left. And it's a huge struggle to do that because we are so geared to excess. And in everything that we do as Americans, we don't know how to stop. We're hungry, hungry, hungry for bigger, better, more. And if we could just get the message across that Michael Pollan came up with after he researched his last book and he distilled it into those, whatever it was, 7 words. Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. It's as simple as that. It's what my grandmother did. It's what your grandmothers did. It's the way eating food used to be, and somehow we have to figure out how to get back there.
Excellent. And for Michael Pollan fans, or those of you who don't know who Michael Pollan is, he was in the movie. He wrote Omnivore's Dilemma, his most recent book, In Defense of Food, and also Botany of Desire, 3 terrific books on food. And then Eric Schlosser, another great book, he wrote Fast Food Nation. And there's a companion book to this film called Food, Inc., I think the companion book, which goes into further depth with all of the farmers and food producers, except, of course, those from Tyson, Purdue, Smithfield, and Monsanto, who declined to be interviewed for the book as well. So that's some further reading.
There's also, Michael Pollan also has a little tiny book. Have you seen it? It's like... Food rules. How many food rules are there? 46 or something food rules, and it's just so simple.
Well said, Jody.
But hard.
Yeah. Don,
Hey.
How do you feel about watching?
Overwhelmed. I also have to say that the farmer in Virginia, I think Polyface Farms.
Joel Salatin, yeah.
Joel Salatin.
Yeah.
What a hero that guy is. Just such a charming, lucid, intellectually lively guy. I'll just talk briefly about my own involvement. I'm the volunteer chair of the Boston Public Market Association. By day, I'm a real estate lawyer working in real estate development. But I've been involved in this issue increasingly over the years. And our goal at the BPMA is to bring to Boston the kind of amenity that exists in a number of North American cities, and that is a permanent year-round public market, which is essentially a farmer's market that will be indoors. It will have a much greater variety of product than the seasonal farmers markets we have. We have a few farmers markets around Boston. In the summertime, we'll be running a couple ourselves this summer. But you don't have refrigeration at a seasonal farmers market. You're very limited in terms of what you can sell in terms of cheese, meats, seafood. There is some of that being sold, but the health restrictions make it difficult to sell a wide variety of product in that setting. So when we get a year-round indoor climate-controlled facility, we're going to be able to bring into the heart of Boston this enormous variety and abundance of extraordinary foods that are being produced in our region. New England is really one of the great food-producing regions of North America, but we don't see it because there's no place that really collects and brings everything together for us. If you go to Philadelphia, for example, and you visit the Reading Terminal Market there, you'll see what's coming in off the farms from Lancaster County, what the Amish farmers are bringing in. You'll see all the baked goods. You'll see the seafood. You see the regional cheeses. We don't really have anything in New England that brings together all we produce, and yet we have some of the best cheesemakers in the world. We have extraordinary seafood. The Pioneer Valley produces some of the best produce anywhere with incredibly rich soil. But as this film demonstrated so effectively, agribusiness production is what supplies the grocery store chains. Massachusetts farmers have too short of a growing season. Their parcels are too small. They can't produce at the price points to meet the requirements of the big supermarkets. And as a result, our food is coming often from thousands of miles away. And although we have all this extraordinary food being produced all around us, very close to us, it's not distributed into Boston. It's not available for sale. So the goal of our organization is to create a low-cost, nonprofit outlet so that the producers of the food can come to the city where the demand is and where the disposable income is and sell directly to their customers. That's the goal. There'll be all sorts of health benefits that will spin out of this. We calculate based on similar markets around the country that we can inject about $30 million a year in new sales into the regional agricultural economy, which is a big increase. And at the same time, we can produce a fabulous, fun amenity for the city where locals, home chefs can shop, tourists will visit, chefs like Jody will come in and look for stuff for their restaurants. You get this fabulous mix of people. It'll be a classic urban experience. The country will meet the city. And in moving forward with this project, we hope that we can help to push back against some of the problems that we just saw in this film.
Excellent. I'm going to start with a question for Jody, and that is, Jody is the chef and owner of Rialto Restaurant in Cambridge, and it is by no means fast food restaurant. It's a beautiful restaurant with gorgeous food, and you feed so many people, including not just your customers, but your staff as well. And I'm just wondering, how much of your menu is driven by your own political ideas about food, and is this something that you talk about with your staff and your customer? Because I'm sure, here's your steak. Did you know that it's grass-fed? I mean, how much do you?
Well, my job, Annie, and anybody else who's out there, really is to make good food. That is what I do. That's why people come to the restaurant, because the food is delicious. My position is one in terms of how I buy food and how I cook food, how I treat my staff, the kinds of relationships I have with the people who produce the food is one that I have chosen that just makes sense to me in the grand scheme of life. I like relationships. I like knowing the people that I'm buying from. And we've gotten to know lots and lots and lots of those people through an adventure program that I had at the restaurant called Guerrilla Grilling, where we'd go to farms, wake up the staff way earlier than they were used to. That meant 10 o'clock in the morning. And we went to oyster farms, cheese makers, chocolate makers, vegetable farms, and got to know the farmers, picked the food, cooked the food, sat down at a table with them, and ate the food. And the reason that I did that was not because it was a political statement, because I don't believe that my role as a chef and restaurateur and boss is to be a political leader. But it was just about doing what we do and being educated. And as a result, the staff knows where their food comes from, and so they can talk to customers and they can tell them, you know, these oysters that we are serving you come from Duxbury, and they are handled with incredible care, and we saw how they're handled. And so it's knowledge rather than a political position.
Don, the public market has been, it's getting closer and closer to becoming a reality. I'm wondering, how close are we, and what is your biggest challenge at that point? Is it government? Is it real estate? Is it the community? And what can we do to help us get this public market going?
That's a great question. I got into this project because I work in real estate and I like to eat. And when you think about what it takes to get a public market in Boston, you know, this is a 400-year-old city. It's very densely developed. There aren't many parking lots like you find in a lot of big cities. And if you're looking for a building site, you're competing with a lot of highly capitalized local and national developers. And getting a space is a major challenge, not to be taken lightly in Boston. We're fortunate to have the support of Mayor Menino, who has been active in the local farmers market movement since he was a city councilor for Hyde Park. The BRA did a study, that's the city's development agency, that identified a potential site near Faneuil Hall, which up until the 1950s was actually the center of local food distribution in Boston before it became a sort of a kitschy tourist magnet. And the Boston Globe wrote an editorial recently calling for this particular building, which is the Haymarket Tea Stop building, to be given by the state for this use. And we are having a number of conversations with state officials about this. The model you see in other cities is typically this. Many of these facilities have some level of public involvement. Often the facility itself is a publicly owned building. Often these organizations are not charged rent. There's also often a capital subsidy to get them up and running. It's actually expensive, and as Jody knows, building out restaurants is a staggeringly expensive proposition. Even a very small, cheap restaurant can easily run $1 million. If we're going to build out a public market, we're going to have all sorts of plumbing, all sorts of wiring. We're going to have 50 to 75 little independent food entrepreneurs selling within a space, an interior space, and we're looking at sort of a $10 million project. So we expect it's likely we'll get a mixture of public and private funding, and but that said, given a long-term low-cost lease from a public authority, and given a certain amount of startup funds, markets like these carry themselves economically on an operating basis. So we don't think this is going to be a subsidy. In fact, we think this is going to throw off a lot of cash into the local economy. But the basic challenges are get a site, get the money to build it out, and we think between some public support and some foundation partners, odds are relatively good. We'll have positive news to share in the next 6 months. One last thing I'll add is we're in the process of putting together a video that's going to feature a number of local folks giving a very distilled message about why a public market is important, what needs to happen to make it happen. And then we're going to try to make this video go viral. And it's going to have a little button where you can click and send an email to the governor. You can click and send money to us if you'd like to do that. And I just want to encourage everyone in this room, if you get this from one of your friends on email, send it around as much as you can. That will make a big difference.
So it would be really terrific if this public market comes to fruition, and I think we'll all do our best to support it. Not necessarily your area of expertise, but then how do we also face the challenge of getting more local, seasonal, regional foods into our supermarkets? Do you have any thoughts on that? And do we have enough farmers and, shellfish collectors and cheesemakers and fishermen to make this happen?
You know, the issue of capacity is an interesting one. All I can say is we're not nearly hitting it right now.
Yeah.
There's enormous untapped demand in Boston. The local agricultural sector has been growing by leaps and bounds in Massachusetts over the past decade. The number of seasonal farmers markets has gone from, I think, about 40 to north of 200 this summer. The demand is there, and so far the product has been there. One thing that we're asked a lot is, how are you going to sell year-round in New England? What are you really going to be selling in the cold winter months? And the answer to that is partly there's lots of stuff that's available year-round: cheese, seafood, meat, et cetera. That's not going anywhere. But increasingly, northeastern farmers are able to build greenhouses and extend the growing season. And our expectation is that within the next couple of years, there's not going to be that much fall off in the winter in terms of produce being available, which is a surprise to me, but it's something I've heard from a number of folks in the agricultural community. So we think in the short run, we can sell year-round, and we can show in downtown Boston there are tens of millions of dollars in sales to be had doing this. We expect also that we'll have a decent wholesale business to chefs who will find this much variety of product available in downtown Boston to be a real asset. And then the hope is that allows investment by farmers. They're able to increase their production, not to agribusiness levels,
Right.
but to somewhat greater capacity than today. And perhaps then we will see more supermarket penetration as well.
Jody, what is the price, not just the actual per pound price, but also the price as far as customer satisfaction, flavor, the labor it takes to break down, say, commodity pork versus a local farmer's pig? I mean, I assume that if you buy from a local farmer, you're going to get the whole hog, as it were.
You get the whole hog, yeah.
Yeah.
Or half of
Sorry,
that.
I've been waiting all day for that joke.
Well,
And it wasn't that
first
good,
of
I
all, I personally, and I think for the people who work for me, to get a whole animal in, which doesn't happen very often, and to break it down is incredibly valuable, because I'm in the business of handling food. That's what I like to do. I like to touch it. I like to smell it. I like to, do things with cut it and cook it, and that's why I'm in this business. And so one of my favorite things to do is actually to break down animals and look at the muscle of the animal. There's no doubt that there's enormous value there for me and for my staff. In terms of flavor, you just can't compare the flavor, and our customers know, and our staff knows as well. So what it does mean, however, is that it's more expensive. Buying from local farmers is more expensive. Buying non-commodity meat is more expensive. And it was really brought home to us during the last 2 years when food was more expensive and the economy was taking a hit on everybody. And yet, not only did we not raise our prices, but we lowered our prices. And it meant that our food costs was skewed. And going into the summer months, as we're about to right now, I make a decision about what my food costs look like. That means what is the percentage per every dollar, how much am I spending on a carrot? And that number goes up every summer. And somebody coming in and look, sort of a business person zooming down and looking at my profit and loss statement would say, "What are you doing? You're crazy. You can get carrots for half that price. Why are you doing that?" And they're all of the reasons that were talked about in the movie. And one would hope that with a public market and more pressure on coming from us for farmers to produce, that we could actually do something about subsidizing. Because the concern for me is not about the people that can come to my restaurant. The concern for me is that family that was making a choice about a Burger King hamburger and a carrot. And I will tell you that they were probably from Mexico, and they probably in Mexico ate lots of fresh vegetables. People who come from cultures that aren't as rich as ours often eat better than we do. They eat more grains, they eat more beans, they eat more vegetables, because in those circumstances, those things are less expensive. I would like to see our world think about animal protein as more of a condiment as opposed to being the main event in the center of a plate.
Right. Yeah. Here. I too was thinking about that family, and I was trying to figure out, just on paper, they had $12. There were 4 of them, and I was trying to think of the 4 pounds of broccoli, which might have been enough for them. That was almost half their budget right there. Onions, garlic, pepper, some brown rice and beans, but there's no animal protein in that, and that maybe would have fed them. And I bet you those kids wouldn't touch that meal, wouldn't go anywhere near, because they've been eating, that Burger King drive-through. But almost as bad as what they were eating, what was also heartbreaking to me was how they were eating it. The father driving and the food being handed and wrapped in paper to the 2 girls in the back seat of the car, and that's almost as frightening. And there are no single-income families, and it sounded like that family wasn't just a double income, but maybe both of them had 2 jobs. So, how do we, like Jody said, it's not the people that are going to Rialto, and probably us here in the room, but people who are in different circumstances. We're going to open this up to some questions. If you could come up to the microphone, and again, I will cut you off if your question's too long. Hi, sir. How are you?
Hi, thank you for this evening's presentation. As you said, it is slanted, it is propaganda, but propaganda, after all, is spreading the facts.
Yeah.
It's not a bad word.
Agreed.
But on the other side of the organic versus processed, are there any drawbacks to organics? We saw many drawbacks to the other side.
Absolutely. And Don and Jody jump in too. Personally, I think local, seasonal is our healthiest and first line of defense for healthy eating. Organic is terrific, but organic can also be, there are organic Twinkies, right? There are, the runoff from organic dairy farms into our water supply are almost as dangerous as processed chemicals. And so that, Jody, Don, do you have?
I also think, the other side of that is organic labeling is a federal labeling system now, and you probably know lots more than I do, but I know for a lot of our farmers, small farmers, they've chosen not to be certified organic because the process is very long, intensive, and extremely expensive, and they have to document every move they make, and they just, don't have the labor to do that. So.
Yeah, I'll second that point. I spend more and more of my life with farmers, which is great. They're wonderful, smart, resourceful people. Just as an aside, the guy at the end of the film has said, if you demand better food, we'll come up with it. We're resourceful people. It's very true. Anyway, Massachusetts has long been a leader in sustainable farming. A lot of farmers tell me that they, for the reasons Jody mentioned, don't pursue the organic certification, but there are a number of sustainable farming approaches that are probably more prevalent in Massachusetts, or not probably, they are more prevalent in Massachusetts than the technically compliant organic production method.
But I would say the reason that there is the other dark side of farming, industrial farming, is because there is so much food produced, and there is this notion that that's a good thing, and feeding lots and lots of people is a good thing. It's just, are there ways of doing it that don't involve such a dangerous approach? And can we eat less? There is a great article, if you haven't read it, on The Atlantic by a journalist who tried for his entire life to lose weight and could not do it, and ultimately had surgery, and talks about what an amazing luxury that is for him, that he could actually lose 150 pounds or whatever it was through surgery, but most people can't do that. And embedded in the article is all kinds of interesting information, but one of the things that really shocked me was that there's been a study done looking at the portion size and joy of cooking recipes that have gone since it was published in the early 1900s to now. Portion size in 17 out of 18 recipes increased 63%. So we're eating more than twice as much as we used to, and we don't need to. We really just don't. So producing lots and lots and lots of food is not necessary. I don't know. Do we need to do that here?
We don't. We have too much food, and the excess food doesn't get to the people who are hungry, which is another topic for another Ford Hall Forum. You have a question for us.
I was just also going to say that with organic food, some of it is just traveling in unconscionable distances. And,
Yeah.
And it's because we're feeling that we need to have strawberries in the middle of winter and so forth. But that's an aside. My question was, part of it is being able to demand and buy responsibly. And I feel that I try to. But yet so many stores are featuring products that are private labeled or that have no real place of manufacture. And so how can I, as a responsible consumer, knowledgeable consumer, get milk that is local or is
Or at least know where it came from.
right, and
Yeah.
living in a city? Okay, so I live in Boston, so I'm not going to, without a car, so I'm not able to go to farms. Thank you.
Right, and then, even if you were able to go out to the farms, what's the carbon footprint of going out to the farm to get a gallon of milk? I think that one of the best ways you can do that is talk to, if it's milk, then the dairy manager at your market and say, hey, listen, I spend, $7,000 a year here at your grocery store. Whatever it is. Can you find out where our milk is coming from? And put some pressure on them, or get 10 friends to do the same thing. One person, maybe they might say, gosh, that's a little bit of paperwork. 10 people do it. Oh, they're on me. 20 people do it. Oh gosh, I have to do it now. And they're going to get that information to you. And it's got to be small, grassroots, but they will respond to you. And like Gary Hirschberg was saying, we got to be Goliath.
Well, I'm reminded, actually, what an image came into my head. If you go to a market in France or Italy, and just a street market anywhere, and the haggling that goes on between the seller and the buyer, and the buyer absolutely demands a right to know everything about whatever it is they're growing, and they're going to tell the farmer, whoever it is, that it's garbage, they're not going to buy it, and they have this nice little back and forth. And because of this veil that Michael Pollan talked about, we feel that we don't have the right to ask somebody in the market, and oftentimes they may not know. I absolutely agree with Annie. I think if you ask to speak to somebody in the market, and enough people do it, you can make a change. And that's why our markets have the kinds of things in it that they have today that they didn't have 10 years ago, because people were asking for them.
The movie asked this question, but I'm just wondering about the Boston public market in particular, if it's planning on taking food stamps.
It's a great question.
Yeah, good question.
There are a couple overlapping programs that have interested us. One is the EBT, the electronic food stamp payment, which is now called SNAP. It's the new acronym, the current acronym for the program. Boston also is fortunate to have a program called Bounty Bucks, which doubles the amount that you can spend if you're a SNAP payment recipient at farmers markets, up to $10 additional a week if you're buying fresh produce. We applied for a grant over the winter to the State Department of Agricultural Resources, and we got it. So at the two farmers markets we'll be running, one in front of South Station at what's called Dewey Square on the edge of the financial district, and the other at Government Center on the City Hall Plaza this summer. Both will be taking for the first time food stamps, and part of that grant is for the terminal, and part of it's for outreach. So we'll be going to various social welfare agencies, churches, et cetera. We'll try to spread the word that we can take these payments. We also take WIC payments. So, yeah, one perception we want to push back against as we advocate for the public market project is that it's entirely a kind of professional class phenomenon to be able to eat good, healthy local food. Our goal is to get people to a broad range of income levels to come in and shop.
Yeah, really glad that you asked that question because we are talking about such as that family. They have $12 to spend for 4 people to eat, but if we're not giving them access to good, healthy, wholesome local food, they're never going to make it. We're going to take 3 more questions, and you, sir, are number 1. Hi.
Ooh, I don't like public speaking.
Oh, you're doing great so far.
Itchy. I just retired from the produce business 33 years, and I'm picking up another career. And I've seen the produce business go from the mom and pop to what everything says here. But what really bothers me, how do we let the lawyers for Monsanto, who was hired to skirt the law for Monsanto,
Yeah.
go to the FDA? I mean, why can't we call these people to the... I just sit here and I'm looking and I'm saying, Monsanto, government.
But see, you can.
insane.
That's the thing. Maybe all of us, that can be our task tonight to say, find out Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
Let's write. I mean, we wrote letters about him before. Let's write a letter about this.
I mean,
Right. Exactly.
Well, tonight, did anybody know about Clarence Thomas? I mean, I didn't know.
Yeah. Only from seeing the film.
But I
Yeah.
just see the Monsanto and he turns his card over.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to call these people in we have to vote somebody out and somebody in and...
I agree, and I mean I think that it's not just local city councilmen and our mayor and our government, but it's our governor, but it's John Kerry.
But in the movie, you see how they start at the bottom and
Yeah.
investing them. Something runs downhill, you start at the top.
Right, fish stinks from the head down.
Let me give you a partial. I'll give you a partial answer. In my opinion,
Good, thanks.
so much of the theme of that movie is about how transparency is so powerful. If you saw it was inside the chicken house,
Oh, yeah.
you may still eat chicken, but not from that producer. And my sense is that folks don't know how high-level executives are appointed to the FDA because that's a corner of government that the average American has very little awareness of, doesn't pay much attention to. You go in the supermarket and it's all bright and freshly lit and the floor is scrubbed and it seems very clean and sanitary. My sense is that the consciousness of the economic, political, health significance of the food we eat is rising, and it's rising with the explosion of farmers markets. And when you look at the food scene in Boston compared to what it was 20 years ago, the number of quality restaurants we have that are using locally sourced products, there's just been a sea change in, I think, our awareness of what our food is. And so partly it's a movement that is just starting to ripen. And I think as it becomes a bigger issue that affects more people are thinking about, we're going to see a change in government.
I mean, I can actually say Jody walks the walk because I know
Forever.
who she does business with. She's always been, one of the best anyway. But
Thank you. I think there was a website to go on, www.foodinc.com. I think what Annie's saying is we have the ability to affect change. It's just we have to be loud and boisterous about it.
And about you asked about the supermarket where your milk comes from. Ask nicely where it came from. The sugar versus vinegar does attract more flies. You, sir, question number 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thus far, the panel is tilted toward incentives, market incentives to growers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all well and good. I have a regret that there's not a lawyer on the panel.
Don's a lawyer. Don is a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have a regret that the lawyer is not talking about litigation.
As far as suing these big
as far
companies?
as the analog to the lawsuits against the tobacco industry
Yeah.
that were mentioned in the film, because there are such efforts in the food realm too, by the same lead lawyer and team, Dick Daynard at Northeastern University. So the other question is, and that was
Yeah, no, that's a
not
terrific
really not a
point.
question.
Yeah.
But I would like the panelists to address the question, what is the role of litigation in trying to alter the situation that you don't like now?
Yeah.
And then the second question is, if you look at it from the point of view of health promotion, there's not just the question of calories in and what kinds of calories are in, but also the question of calories out, levels of physical activity, availability of safe places to walk and ride bicycles. And so how does that play into your picture?
That's terrific comments, and I'll speak briefly, and maybe you guys can speak on it as well. Don was talking about as much as $30 million coming into the bottom line of the Massachusetts coffers, which is fantastic. But I also think that the long-term effects of a better diet, whether it's eating locally and in season, where our cancer, obesity, and diabetes rates are going to plummet, and we'll be healthier. And I think that that's also something that affects our bottom line.
Annie, I hate to interrupt, but I just want to say that it's almost 8:45, so we have to wrap up. So I guess if each of our speakers wants to wrap it up, that would be great. Oh, you have, I'm sorry, we have one more question. Can we go to the last question?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we lost our...
We lost our questioner.
I just had an observation real quick. One of the things that disturbed me as much as the food, because I've read all the books, and my husband every day he's saying, "What else can't I eat?"
What now?
Was the assault on free speech. I don't know if anybody, but that rang for me so clearly. The fact that in America somebody can forbid you to criticize, and I think that the forum is so important to have these free lectures, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of what you eat or can't eat. It's very, very frightening, and that really just kept ringing for me, and I'm wondering if you all noticed that as well.
Definitely noticed it. Jody and Don, how do you feel?
The shocking about the photographs and the fact that she can't say anything negative. I don't understand. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't.
Yeah, there's so many different things to say about this, but that would be an entirely separate lecture. I will just say in my own practice, the effect of resources on the outcome of disputes is night and day. And as you saw, the guy who was the seed cleaner ended up settling because it's the cost of litigation is so high, and the need for expert witnesses, the time when you're paying on a per hourly basis, which is how most lawyers are paid, it is absolutely an unbalanced fight. And the only way those issues can really be addressed is if a foundation or if a large player, a civil liberties group, gets into the fight, because the individual simply can't pay the legal bills. I mean, you think about the discretionary income the average working class person has, then you add legal bills on the top of it, and you just never really get to a resolution of the matter. So it's less an indictment of how the justice system would treat the claim and more about the cost of getting that claim heard in court, which can be overwhelming.
Okay, so what can we all do? Well, I think if Joel Salatin from Polyface Farm, he didn't say it in the movie, but I heard him say it at other conferences, he would all have us raising chickens in our backyard. And even I said, well, I live in an apartment. He said, yeah, it might be illegal, but do it. You drive 65 or 75 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. There's not enough people to enforce that. So, maybe that's a little bit too big of a thing for me to do, but we can all shop better. We can demand local. We can demand seasonal. Vote with our forks, whether you're at the grocery store or at a restaurant. Work with your neighbors and, start a CSA, a community-supported agriculture, where you work with a farm and you get a bag of food, and that's the food you get, and you guarantee that farm can grow throughout the season. Bring a farmer's market to your area, or more local farmers into your stores. Get your kids involved. I think that's really important. Thank you, Jody and Don, so much, and Jen and Sally Jackson, and thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. If you'd like to support the forum and you happen to have something in your pocket, we have an esteemed board member who's taking donations as you leave. And thank you to our speakers for coming. We're happy to give you our Democracy in the Making book as a token of our appreciation. Good night.
Hi.
What do I
This preceding program was brought to you by Suffolk University. Please visit us on the web at www.suffolk.edu.